Hello everyone, this is Dr. Frank Tianxie. In this lecture, we're going to cover Chapter 18, Measuring the Effectiveness of the Promotional Program. Effectiveness of the promotional program. Okay? Why do we want to measure effectiveness? Okay? And the advantages and disadvantages of measuring them. The advantages of measuring effectiveness of advertisement or promotional programs are, first, we can use that to avoid costly mistakes. Some of the mistakes could be very, very costly. Okay? If you measure that, you know it's not working, what's not working, then you can have a way to avoid, bad mistakes. Okay? You can use that to evaluate alternative strategies, different strategies, see which one works best. You can increase the efficiency in general for your company. And also you can use to determine if objectives are achieved or not. Okay? But there are disadvantages of doing the measurement. Okay? The measurement itself is costly. There's a cost there. And there's also research problems. Problem with doing the research to do the measurement. Okay? And there could be disagreements as to what to test. Okay? And also the objections of the creative people, because they are more interested in coming up with creative ideas than the sales. And also it's very time consuming. Okay? But nonetheless, companies, firms do use measurement to test, to see how effective their advertising campaign, has been. Right? Some are actually quite successful, like the United States Postal Service. Okay? And who is the major competitor of USPS? Right? They have to compete with FedEx and UPS, right? And they have to maintain by law or this is a semi-state owned. So this USPS, our old USPS, we call it a snail mail, but they have to deliver to all different old locations, old addresses, old zip codes, be in the mountains or in the who knows, deserts or somewhere far out places. They have to be able to deliver. So some routes are very expensive to maintain, but they have to maintain it, right? And they have aging fleets, and they're not really up to date with technology, but they're competing hard. But they're losing money too. But for this campaign they have this low flat rate package campaign, right? So they want to use that to compete with the FedEx and the UPS of similar campaign, okay? And they have been very successful, right? They can actually measure the success of that, okay? Flat rate shipping kit, okay? Measuring advertising effectiveness, First, you want to consider is what to test. You can test your source factors, that's the spokesperson, in the ad. Okay? You can test your message variables, everything about your message. You can tap your media strategies, whether you have chosen the correct, medium, and you can test your budget decisions. Okay, that's first thing. And then where to test. You can conduct the test in lab setting, okay? Or you can do that in the field, real world field testing. And next is when do you do the test? When to test? You can do pre-testing, that before the ad is the promotion program is carried out, or you can do post-testing after it's carried out. And then how to test? What are the testing guidelines and what are the appropriate tests? All these things you have to decide on, many factors to consider. Okay. Let's talk about testing methods, like pre-test. You can use lab tests, methods, like consumer juries. Excuse me, come up with gather a consumer jury to test in lab setting. You can do portfolio tests. You can do psychological measures. Plug in the wires, everything. You can use a theater test. You can use a rough test a rough draft of your ad. You can use concept test the advertising concept, the design contest. You can test for readability. You have copy, advertising copy, and the words there, is it readable? Is understandable, by people, or comprehension and reaction tests. You can test those. These are all pre-tests. Then field methods, you can use dummy advertising vehicle. You can actually create a dummy advertising vehicle to test. Or you can use on-air testing with a real vehicle. Okay. You can do post-tests, like field methods, like test for recall after after your ad has been aired. Ask consumers if they can recall, or to what extent they can recall. You can test for single source systems. You can test for the recognition test if they can recognize your brand, or association methods, or inquiry tests, and tracking studies, over time. The testing methods. Where to test? In the field or in the lab. Okay? If you do it in the field, of course, it's more expensive, it's larger, it's more complicated. In the lab, it's simulated. Excuse me. It's easier to test. It's smaller scale, but the validity may not be as good. Okay? The advertising agency uses a positioning advertising copy test, or PACT. Right? There's the guidelines here. Provide measurements relevant to objectives. Require agreement. Hold on a second. I'm getting some water. Sorry. Okay. You can use and second, require agreements on how results will be used. 3, provide multiple measures. 4, be based on model human response to communications. 5, consider multiple versus single exposure to the stimulus. 6, require alternative execution to have some same degree of finish. And 7, provide control to avoid the biasing effect. 8, take into account the basic considerations of sample definition. And 9, demonstrates reliability and validity. You see this the protocol they follow. Okay? Test points. It could occur at the various stages. Right? You could do concept testing, very beginning. You can do a rough testing when you have the draft. You can have finished art or commercial pre-testing, and after the artwork is designed, I can use the market testing. That's the post testing. Okay, the different test points. For concept testing, the objective here is to explore consumers' response to ad concepts expressing words, pictures, or symbols. Okay, methods you can use alternatives are exposed to consumers who match the target audience. You can take reactions, evaluations, sort through focus groups, direct questioning, and surveys. And the sample sizes here depend on the number of concepts and consensus of responses. Yeah. The output of concept testing is qualitative and or quantitative data. evaluating and comparing alternative concepts. That's concept testing. Okay? You can use a focus group. Focus group, results are easily obtained, observable, and immediate. Okay? You can cover multiple issues and examine multiple issues. You get in-depth feedback, But the drawbacks of focus group, the results may not be quantifiable. Right? Sample size may be too small. Group influence may bias responses, and some members may dominate discussions. That's why as a moderator you need to take control. And participants become instant experts, so-called experts, since they are asked about their opinion. And members may not represent the target market. That's a problem. And results may be given too much weight. That's another drawback of using focus group. Okay. Rough art, copy, and commercial testing. You can do a comprehension and reaction tests. You can do a consumer jury test. Okay. The advantage of consumer jury test is you have good control. It's very cost effective, and it's endorsement by independent third parties and the achievement of credibility. But disadvantages of consumer jury is consumer may become self-appointed expert when in fact they may not be. Okay? Also, the number of ads that can be evaluated is limited. Okay? There could be a halo effect. Okay? And the preference for ad types may overshadow objectivity. So that's the disadvantages. Rough testing terms. And there's animated rough, there's a photomatic rough, and there's a live action rough. Okay? There's a pre-testing of finished print ads. Okay? You can do a portfolio test. It's a lab method, includes test and control ads, and portfolio test can test, you have some problems too. Readability test, based on the syllables per 100 words. Right? You can also consider other factors. Dummy advertising vehicles. You can send to random sample homes, and product interest may bias results though, okay, using a dummy vehicle. Pre-testing finished broadcast advertisement. You can do a theater test, have people in a theater setting, and on-air test, and you can do also physiological measures. Okay? In physiological measures, advertising agencies have been using pupil dilation test just to see how your eye pupil is dilating. Because when we see something exciting or we really like, your pupil will dilate, will open up further. You can conduct galvanic skin response test. That is when we feel excitement or happiness or some strong emotions, the conductivity on your skin, is going to change. So that can be tested. Also, eye tracking. If you have a large, print ad, a billboard, where do consumers, how do consumers, move their eyes? Which part do they look at first, second, third, etc., moving through the picture? And also you can test for the brain waves. Okay. Market testing of ads. You can use inquiry test. How many inquiries you generated? Excuse me. And the recognition test. How many recognize your brand or your advertisement? Recall test. How many people actually recalled your ad? Okay. And also tracking studies, tracking over time. Okay. Starch ad recognition scores. You can read that further on in the book. There's a noting score, brand associated score. There's a read most score. You can use those scores to do the test. Some agencies use that. Post-test of broadcast commercials. You can use the day after recall test. Day after the commercial is aired, how many people can recall, seeing that. There's a persuasive measures test. Test to see if they have been persuaded, right? There's a diagnostic test, right, about the ad itself. There's a comprehensive measures test. There's test marketing. There's single source tracking and tracking studies on broadcast commercials. Okay. Comprehensive testing by Ipsos-ASI. You can take a look at that. There's a advertising research company. They did a very comprehensive testing, very detailed testing on those TV commercials. And essentials of effective testing. Right? Basically, for you to have effective testing, you need to establish communications objectives and use a consumer response model. Use both pre-test and post-test. Use multiple measures, and then understand and implement proper research. Then you can have effective testing. Okay? Measuring effectiveness of other programs, sales promotions, non-traditional media, and 1 minute. Sales promotions, non-traditional media, and sponsorships. For non-traditional media, you can, for example, you can test for shopping cart signage, ski resort-based media, like in-store radio, TV, and other media. Sponsorship, you can test for the exposure methods and tracking measures. Okay, and that's all I have for this chapter. Okay, let's see if I can get this one stopped.